Have you ever noticed how the moment you begin to rise, the noise around you gets louder? The whispers, the sudden accusations, the strange shift in energy from people who once smiled at you. And then one day, you realize something shocking. They went to extreme lengths trying to take you out, yet they had absolutely nothing solid to stand on. No proof, no evidence, just fear, insecurity, and desperation. Why does that happen? When someone carries vision, discipline, and quiet resilience, it unsettles those who rely on comfort and control. You did not announce your growth. You did not seek conflict. You simply evolved. You became more focused, more grounded, more aware, and somehow that alone became a threat. Think about it. If there had been real proof against you, they would not have needed rumors. If there had been real wrongdoing, they would not have needed exaggeration. The intensity of their reaction reveals more about their inner instability than about your character. When people feel their influence slipping, they often attempt to rewrite the narrative. Have you ever asked yourself why they worked so hard? Why invest so much energy into someone they claim is insignificant? Why gather others, create stories, or attempt to isolate you? The truth is uncomfortable for them. Your existence exposed something in them they were not ready to confront. Some individuals are deeply disturbed by integrity, not because integrity is loud, but because it is consistent. You did not fold under pressure. You did not collapse when misunderstood. And when the storm of accusation came, you stayed composed. That composure alone becomes evidence of strength. There is a psychological pattern here. When people cannot control you, they try to control how others see you. It is easier to attack your reputation than to compete with your growth. It is easier to question your motives than to improve their own discipline. And yet, despite the intensity of their efforts, something remarkable happened. You remained standing. Pause and reflect on that. After everything they attempted, you are still here. Not perfect, not untouched, but present, stronger, wiser, more discerning. What does that tell you? It tells you that resilience does not require applause. It does not require validation. It requires alignment with your values. It requires patience when misunderstandings spread. It requires the maturity to resist retaliation, because reacting impulsively would have given them the proof they desperately wanted. Instead, you chose restraint, and restraint is powerful. In a world that rewards loud reactions, calm self-control feels almost revolutionary. You did not allow anger to define your response. You did not allow false narratives to dictate your identity. You understood something deeper. Truth does not panic. So now, look at the situation from a wider perspective. If they went that far without proof, what were they really fighting? Was it you? Or was it the fear of losing relevance? The fear of being outgrown? The fear of seeing someone rise without permission? The shock people feel today is not about your fall. It is about your survival. They expected collapse. They predicted humiliation. They assumed isolation would weaken you. But instead, the pressure refined you. And that is what truly unsettles them. It is one thing to face criticism. It is another to face coordinated opposition built on nothing but assumption. When you realize how far they went, the meetings they held without you, the narratives they carefully crafted, the subtle attempts to discredit you, it almost feels unreal. You start asking yourself, was I really that threatening? Was my quiet progress that disturbing? The answer is often yes. Not because you sought dominance, not because you tried to overshadow anyone, but because you carried something steady, something disciplined, something that did not rely on noise for validation. And when people operate from insecurity, Stability can feel like intimidation. Notice how quickly admiration can turn into suspicion. The same traits that once earned praise suddenly become targets. Your independence becomes arrogance. Your boundaries become hostility. Your focus becomes selfishness. Why does perception flip so easily? Because perception is often shaped by emotion, not truth. When someone feels exposed by your growth, they rarely admit it. Instead, they project. Projection is powerful. It shifts attention away from their own discomfort and redirects it toward you. Suddenly, you are the problem. You are the reason for tension. You are the cause of division. And yet, deep down, you know something does not add up. Have you ever sensed that the accusations were strangely vague? That the claims lacked specifics? That the people repeating them could not clearly explain what you actually did? That is because false narratives rely on emotion, not evidence. They rely on repetition, not reality. And here is the deeper layer. When people try to remove you without proof, they are betting on silence. They assume you will break. They assume stress will cause you to react recklessly. They assume pressure will expose flaws that were never there. But what happens when you remain composed? Everything shifts. Calmness under pressure creates contrast. While they escalate, you stabilize. While they exaggerate, you clarify. While they gather allies through fear, you gather strength through reflection. And slowly, observers begin to notice. Not because you defended yourself loudly, but because consistency cannot be faked forever. There is something profoundly powerful about restraint. It confuses those who expected chaos. It unsettles those who predicted collapse. When you refuse to engage in petty retaliation, you remove the fuel from their strategy. And without fuel, drama eventually burns out. But let us be honest, it still hurts. Being misunderstood stings. Watching people believe half-formed stories can shake your confidence. You might have questioned yourself at times. You might have wondered whether staying silent was weakness. You might have asked, should I fight back harder? Yet every time you chose principle over impulse, you strengthened something within. Integrity is not proven in comfort. It is revealed in conflict. Anyone can look steady when everything is smooth. True steadiness shows when pressure is applied. And now, look around. The very people who were certain of your downfall are quietly confused. They expected visible damage. They expected embarrassment. They expected you to disappear. Instead, you continued forward. You adjusted. You adapted. You refined your circle. You learned who truly stands with you and who was only standing near you. That clarity is a gift. Sometimes opposition exposes more truth than support ever could. And when the dust settles, what remains is not the rumor, not the accusation, not the noise. What remains is character. And character, unlike rumor, does not require proof to survive. There is a moment in every trial when the noise begins to fade. Not because people suddenly admit they were wrong, but because reality quietly corrects exaggeration. Time has a way of exposing what emotion tries to distort. And when no proof ever existed, the absence eventually becomes impossible to ignore. Think about how exhausting it must have been for them. Constantly watching you, waiting for you to slip, hoping for a mistake they could magnify. That level of focus is not casual dislike. It is obsession born from insecurity. When someone invests that much energy into stopping you, it reveals how significant your presence truly is. But here is the question. What did you do during that time? You did not spend your days plotting revenge. You did not obsess over clearing your name in every room. You turned inward. You refined your discipline. You strengthened your mindset. You became more selective with your energy. And that internal shift changed everything. Adversity can either shrink you or sharpen you. It depends on where you anchor your identity. If your identity depends on applause, opposition will crush you. But if your identity is rooted in values, growth, and self-awareness, opposition becomes training. Have you noticed how pressure clarifies people? Some distances grew wider. Some relationships dissolved. Some individuals who once seemed close revealed their true alignment. And although that realization may have hurt, it was also liberating. When illusions fall, clarity rises. They expected isolation to weaken you. Instead, it simplified your world. Fewer distractions, fewer performative connections, more focus, more intention. Sometimes what feels like removal is actually refinement. And let us address something deeper. Why do false narratives spread so easily? Because people are drawn to drama. It is stimulating. It feels important. It creates temporary belonging. But drama has a short lifespan when it is unsupported by truth. Eventually, even the most entertained audience grows tired. Consistency, however, builds slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. Day after day, you showed up the same. Your actions aligned with your words. Your results spoke without needing announcement. And over time, observers began to compare the story they were told with the reality they saw. That comparison is powerful. When perception and evidence clash, thoughtful people start asking questions. They start noticing contradictions. They start wondering why someone so dangerous appears so steady, why someone so problematic continues progressing, why someone so exposed shows no cracks. This is where maturity becomes your advantage. You understand that clearing your name is less important than protecting your peace. You recognize that not every accusation deserves your voice. Sometimes silence is not weakness. It is strategic restraint. Have you realized how much stronger you are now? Not just externally, but internally. You trust your instincts more. You evaluate people differently. You do not crave universal approval. You understand that misunderstanding is sometimes the price of growth. And perhaps the most shocking part of all is this: you are no longer angry. You see the situation with clarity. You recognize the fear that drove them. You understand the insecurity beneath their actions. That does not excuse the behavior, but it explains it, and explanation removes emotional chaos. The shock today is not just that you survived. It is that you evolved. They tried to interrupt your journey. Instead, they accelerated your awareness. They tried to isolate you. Instead, they revealed who truly belongs in your life. They tried to create a narrative. Instead, they exposed their own. And now, without shouting, without proving anything, you stand on something stronger than reputation. You stand on character shaped by pressure. Now step back and look at the full picture. They went far, farther than necessary, farther than reasonable, farther than anyone expected. Meetings behind closed doors, subtle character attacks, strategic distancing, quiet attempts to discredit you socially or professionally. And through all of it, there was one glaring reality: zero proof. That detail changes everything. When someone has truth on their side, they do not need theatrics. They do not need alliances built on speculation. They do not need urgency fueled by emotion. Truth stands calmly. It does not rush. It does not panic. It does not beg to be believed. So what were they really relying on? They were relying on doubt. Doubt spreads faster than facts. They hoped that if enough uncertainty surrounded your name, people would hesitate before supporting you. They hoped hesitation would slow you down. They hoped that isolation would weaken your confidence. But something unexpected happened. Instead of collapsing under suspicion, you became more intentional. Instead of chasing approval, you refined your focus. Instead of defending yourself in every conversation, you strengthened your results. And over time, something powerful occurred. The absence of evidence became louder than the accusations. People began to notice the gap. They noticed that despite the intensity of the claims, nothing concrete surfaced. They noticed that despite predictions of your downfall, you continued progressing. They noticed that despite efforts to silence you, your composure remained intact. And slowly, quietly, the narrative began to shift. Not because you forced it, but because reality corrected it. Here is the deeper lesson. When someone attempts to remove you without proof, they are reacting to potential. Potential unsettles those who are not secure in their own path. It forces comparison. It forces reflection. It exposes stagnation. And instead of confronting that discomfort internally, some choose to attack externally. But you chose a different path. You chose patience over panic, discipline over drama, self-awareness over retaliation. And that choice built something unshakable, not popularity, not temporary validation, but credibility. Credibility is earned in silence. It is built in the unseen hours when you continue improving while others are distracted by gossip. It is reinforced every time you refuse to mirror the negativity directed at you. It grows every time you allow your actions to speak louder than accusations. Ask yourself this: if they truly believed their own narrative, why are they shocked you are still standing? Why are they surprised you did not unravel? Why are they confused that people still respect you? Because deep down they knew the foundation was weak, and now the shock is visible. The same individuals who expected your removal are adjusting their posture. The same voices that were loud are now quiet. The same energy that was aggressive is now cautious. You did not win by overpowering anyone. You won by enduring. You won by understanding that not every battle requires confrontation. Some battles are won through consistency, through restraint, through unwavering alignment with your principles. And here is what truly matters moving forward. Do not let this experience harden you into bitterness. Let it refine you into wisdom. Let it sharpen your discernment. Let it remind you that your path will not always be comfortable, but it can remain honorable. Because in the end, the most powerful response to being targeted without proof is not revenge. It is growth. And growth, when sustained with integrity, is something no accusation can erase. And now comes the part no one talks about. After the noise fades, after the shock settles, after the attempts fail, there is a quiet shift inside you. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is subtle, but it is permanent. You no longer see the world the same way. You understand now that not everyone who smiles supports you. Not everyone who applauds you wants you to win. And not everyone who questions you is your enemy. Discernment replaces naivety. Awareness replaces assumption. But here is the powerful realization: you are no longer afraid of opposition. Why? Because you have seen what it looks like when people go to extreme lengths without substance. You have experienced what it feels like to be targeted without proof. And you survived it. That memory becomes armor. Not the kind that makes you cold, but the kind that makes you steady. Think about the version of you before all of this happened. You may have sought validation more. You may have over-explained yourself. You may have tried to convince everyone of your intentions. But now, you understand that clarity does not require universal agreement. There is freedom in that. When you stop trying to control how everyone sees you, you reclaim your energy. You redirect it toward purpose, toward growth, toward building something meaningful, instead of defending something misunderstood. And here is something even deeper. The attempt to take you out revealed your true capacity. Pressure exposes limits, but it also expands them. You handled conversations you once would have avoided. You navigated tension without losing your composure. You carried yourself with dignity when it would have been easier to react emotionally. That is evolution. Ask yourself honestly, do not multitask. Would you have grown this much without the challenge? Would you have refined your circle so carefully without the betrayal? Would you have strengthened your discipline without the resistance? Sometimes adversity becomes the unexpected catalyst. The people who tried to stop you unknowingly trained you. They sharpened your awareness. They forced you to develop resilience. They revealed the importance of privacy, of boundaries, of intentional silence. And while their intentions may not have been noble, the outcome strengthened you. That does not mean you glorify what happened. It means you extract wisdom from it. Now you move differently. You speak less but observe more. You trust patterns over promises. You evaluate actions over words. You no longer feel pressured to prove yourself in every room. You understand that those who matter will eventually recognize consistency, and those who do not. They are no longer your responsibility. There is a calm confidence that comes from surviving unjust scrutiny. It is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is quiet certainty. You know who you are. You know what you stand for. And you know that character built under pressure carries weight. So if they are shocked today, let them be. Let them process the fact that you did not crumble. Let them reconcile with the reality that their efforts lacked foundation. Let them adjust to the truth that resilience cannot be manufactured overnight. Your role is not to revisit the past. Your role is to continue forward with integrity. Because the most powerful statement you can make after being targeted without proof is simple. You are still here, still growing, still aligned with your values. And that consistency will always speak louder than any attempt to silence you.